Hello and good morning. Thank you so much for being here on the third day of this conference. The theme today is Science Communication and Public Engagement. Thank you so much again for being here at United Nations University. My name is Kiki Bowman and I'm the head of communications here. So a few quick housekeeping things before we get started. First off, please note no food and beverage in this room. Water is fine, but no other food and beverage. UNU staff members are identifiable by these red tags. So if you need anything, please feel free to come and approach one of us. There's a prayer room and an all-gender bathroom on the 6th floor. You can ask one of us if you need directions. A quick note on earthquake protocol. If there's a major earthquake, there will be an announcement and we will follow directions. Just note that the stairs are back out these ways. Please don't use the elevator. If there's no announcement, it's business as normal. There's no trash bins in here or in Tokyo generally, so please, anything you bring in, please take out. And while the conference is conducted in English, we do offer interpretation in Japanese and Spanish. If you need headsets, there's headsets back there for Japanese, and Spanish is via the Zoom. So with that, we will start in just one moment. Thank you. Wonderful. So now we will go ahead and begin. I would like to start with a state of play on the Pact of the Future implementation. So I'd like to introduce our next video message, our first video message, by Mr. Richard Alex Roehrl, the Senior Economic Affairs Office, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Richard Alex Roehrl is a physicist, economist, and policy analyst. At present, he is a Senior Economic Affairs Officer in the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, where he leads work on science and technology, international cooperation, and the Science Policy Society interface. Among others, he has supported the creation of several new entry points for science and technology stakeholders at the United Nations, including the UN Technology Facilitation Mechanism and the UN Global Sustainable Development Report. Mr. Roehrl has advised governments, supported negotiations, and engaged with science and expert communities on a wide range of issues. He has led analytical work and assessments on sustainable development, emerging science and technology, strategic foresight, and cross-border infrastructures in energy, transport, and communications. Mr. Roehrl received his education from Ludwig Maximilians Universität München and University of Oxford, the University of London, and University of Erlangen-Nuremberg. May we please play the video.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, dear friends. Good morning and greetings from the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. It is an honor to contribute to this important session of our Open Science and Open Scholarship Conference, a session that looks squarely at the state of play in implementing the Pact for the Future. As ASG Hanif reminded us in his opening address, we face a defining moment for both science and multilateralism. He spoke of three urgent challenges: the erosion of trust in science, inequality in access to knowledge, and the transformative and potentially divisive power of emerging technologies, most notably artificial intelligence. He called on all of us to make science a global common good, open by default and equitable by design. Now, much of what he described has already been agreed by UN member states in the context of the Pact for the Future and its Global Digital Compact, adopted last year. The Pact translates those aspirations into a practical agenda for effective implementation of the 2030 Agenda and its SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. I would argue that open science is a cornerstone of the Pact for the Future. Open science is essential for a transparent, inclusive, and evidence-based multilateralism. In fact, open science may be our best hope to ensure that data and evidence are verifiable and that knowledge is shared and trusted. This in itself is absolutely necessary for scientific progress and ultimately to achieve better lives for all. Yet, billions of people still lack meaningful access to science. Open science is therefore not only a question of efficiency or something that can be taken care of only when all basic needs are already fulfilled. Instead, it is a main ingredient in the right to participate in and benefit from scientific progress. It is a human right. Now, let's have a closer look at Pact's Chapter 3, which deals with science, technology, innovation, and digital cooperation, or STI, as we will call it in short. The chapter sets out 6 mutually reinforcing actions, number 28 to 33, that together, I would argue, form the scaffolding of a global open science agenda. Action 28 commits us to harness science and tech for people and planet. It calls for an open, fair, and inclusive global scientific environment and for stronger use of scientific evidence in policy making. Action 29 focuses on scaling up capacity in developing countries. It implicitly calls for support to open science and open source technology for the SDGs. Action 30 ensures that advances in STI uphold human rights and are conducted ethically, protecting researchers' autonomy and safety. Action 31 addresses gender equality in STI, expanding opportunities for women and girls in STEM. Action 32 values indigenous, traditional, and local knowledge and encourages open, respectful exchange between knowledge systems. Action 33 strengthens UN leadership in international STI cooperation. Its sub-action B further requests expanding UN support to governments on science and tech. This includes open science initiatives, capacity, and expertise of UN country teams. The Global Digital Compact complements these actions by building the digital infrastructure for open science by closing divides through equitable data governance and responsible AI. Within the UN system, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs leads the coordination of Chapter 3 implementation. Through the subgroup on STI in the Working Group on Digital Technologies, my department convenes 22 UN entities, including EC, UNDP, UNHabitat, ITU, OSA, ILO, IEA, FAO, UNESCO, UNFPA, and so on, alongside with interested experts from 51 UN entities active in the interagency IATT. This IATT Plus format, as we call it, brings coherence across the UN system and partner activities. Things like the STI Forum, the TMM Group, and interagency collaborations on things like foresight, gender, training, and financing. Together, they aim to strengthen global STI cooperation, embed science in policymaking, expand capacity, promote ethical innovation, and mobilize financing and partnerships. Now, what progress has been made to date in implementing actions 28 to 33? Collaborative progress monitoring by ITT Plus partners are undertaken through an online platform, and this shows a mixed bag. Significant progress on many actions, but also significant gaps. Chapter 3 contains 25 sub-actions. 22 of them are led by member states, 2 of them by UN, and 1 where the UN has a supporting role. Since some sub-actions have several milestones, there are a total of 31 milestones for this year, but most of them refer to member states' actions. Of the 9 milestones that are led or supported by the UN, 6 are in progress and 3 have already been completed. Among 22 member state-led actions, 8 are progressing well, 13 are at risk, and 1 is off track. So a mixed picture. Examples of completed UN milestones include things like the UN Tech and Innovation Report process, CSCD, STI Forum, all of which have mobilized thousands of experts, and most notably, today's Open Science and Open Scholarship Conference is also recognized as an official milestone under Action 33B. Colleagues clearly have great expectation for your deliberations here and potential follow-up. Examples of ongoing work also include expanded capacity building, roadmaps, policy briefs on foresight and human rights, and many events supporting the International Decade of Science for Sustainable Development led by UNESCO. Together, these efforts show that the Pact is not static. It is already in motion, turning principles into practice. And your conference here is one of many pieces in the puzzle. Looking ahead, the UN Technology Facilitation Mechanism, or TFM, remains our most effective platform to sustain this momentum in these times of rapid change. Note this: low and middle income countries now produce more scientific publications than high income countries. This is an incredible milestone of global inclusion that can be celebrated, and the implications of this trend can hardly be overemphasized. Strengthened science capacity is a trend across the entire developing world. China is just part of the story. At the same time, of course, gaps in visibility, infrastructure, and financing persist and are important to address. Through the TFM, we can close at least some of those gaps. We can build integrated SDI for SDG roadmaps and link foresight to national policy. Through the TFM online platform, we can connect repositories, journals, and citizen science platforms worldwide. We could strengthen collaboration for an open knowledge commons, and we can operationalize data governance for open science, ensuring that data are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and that AI systems built on them responsibly serve all of humanity. We can deepen science cooperation, empower the vulnerable, and co-create solutions. Above all, we will rebuild trust in science by making it open, participatory, and responsive to people's lives. Colleagues, the Pact for the Future is more than a negotiated document. It is a shared promise to align science, technology, innovation with our collective vision for peace, prosperity, and sustainability. This conference and this very session form part of that promise in action. By advancing open science, we're helping to turn the Pact's commitments into tangible progress. Let us continue with determination, creativity, and solidarity, ensuring that knowledge is shared openly and equally across borders, disciplines, and generations. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you to Mr. Roehrl for the state of play on the Pact for the Future implementation. We will now move into the opening keynote, followed by a Q&A. It is my pleasure to introduce the opening keynote speaker, Dr. Yuko Harayama. Dr. Yuko Harayama serves as the Secretary General of the Global Partnerships on AI Tokyo Expert Support Center, where she leads international collaboration on artificial intelligence and policy. She currently holds position as trustee of Yamaguchi University and board member of Toray Industries. Dr. Harayama brings extensive experience from senior roles across government, international organizations, and academia. She previously served as the Executive Director on International Affairs at RIKEN and held positions in Japan's Cabinet Office as Executive Member of the Council for Science, Technology, and Innovation. Her international expertise was further developed during her tenure as Deputy Director of the Directorate for Science, Technology, and Industry at the OECD. She is a Legion d'Honneur recipient and holds an honorary doctorate from the University of Nunchal. She is an International Fellow of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Science and a Foundation Fellow of the International Science Council. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for your kind introductions. It's my great pleasure to be with you talking about open science. And this is the topics I have been working for a while. And today I would like to share my view, personal view with you. And in view of not just talking about what's happening today, but for the future in a constructive way. So let's start. The title is to keep knowledge creation and sharing as open and global as possible. It's something that I'm sharing these ideas. To start speaking about this, just a few slides regarding the past, about the science itself, because open science, the core part is science. So what is science? And to have a quick eye on the history, long history of science, we would say we can go back to in ancient Greece. We didn't call science at the moment, but something that we share, the idea of science was already there. And just citing Plato's, his idea was really about what we call today science is really something that you are constructing, knowledge that you are building, not it's pure and also disinterested, not just for purpose of something, but just to understand, to discover something. For example, it was geometry was created. Then, even 11th century, later on, the idea of university came in. And the first one was University of Bologna in Italy. And it became kind of organization in the way of constructing knowledge. And basically, it wasn't top-down, much more bottom-up way. You have scholars, you have students thinking about to understand, better understanding the nature or something. And then exchanging ideas and to build together something that we call today science. So key was really co-production. And to make sure that we have some kind of co-production, you have to be open, discussing and working together. Some example, grammar, rhetorics, and logics. And we have been law as a part of science. And later on in 17th century, now we have just some what we call modern science just appearing. And the key goal was just, in short, very complex things, but idea was mastering the nature because we, as a human being, we are on the globe and within the nature and surrounded by so many things. And so many things happen, but the curiosity of human being wanted to know what's happening behind, why it's happened. So the mastering the nature became kind of foundation of scientific method, how to do that. And also what we do as a practice doing science, generating hypotheses, setting up your protocol, doing experimentations, and getting data or empirical verification and writing up papers. So all this process have been very structured since then. We call it today scientific method. And later on, we are just nearby now, 20th centuries. We saw the paper of Karl Popper's. He said, what is key in science was falsifiability. That means everyone can contest because once it is established as a common knowledge, scientifically proved, it's not for eternity. You may have some new discovery with construction of knowledge structure. So what is good is open in the sense that everybody can challenge the ideas in a scientific way. And with this, we knew the growth of knowledge bases. So this is really quickly, really compacted history. And then we are moving a little bit more for today. Once established science with the science method, it was not to stay the same. We are surrounded by changing landscape, and science we can call ecosystem has been evolving through time, and still today it's evolving. Mostly, as I said at the beginning, gathering scholar and students, but mainly it was being a kind of enterprise at the individual level. So you, as a scientist, you are thinking about how I understand the nature. But now, more than more, it's not only you as a scientist. You are working with your team, your colleagues, and your student too. And it's much more organized way and the collective way of working together to do science. Astronomy, huge number of scores for one paper. And some in social science, that's less, but even though you are working collaboratively. And we are facing ongoing technological and organizational transformation, which include university structures and also rise of AI and the data tools were here. And now we are mostly depending, but also exploring all this the power of digital, and in particular, not just capacity to gather data, but also using computational power, and also, and in particular, what is really driving force now today is artificial intelligence. The way we are doing science has been transformed by this capacity to gather data, to manage data, analyze data, thanks to the internet and all the data sets and the computation power. But now, additionally, this AI bringing to you new way of thinking, new way of generating hypotheses, new way of structuring everything, and even writing paper. So it's completely transforming the way we do science. And some are saying in the coming years, or it could be this year, we may have what we may call AI scientist. We have a challenge to bring something, because today we have piece by piece from hypothesis generation into writing paper publishing. Almost all piece can be supported, helped by AI. But full set could be, why not? So that's where we are today. Plus, I was talking about science till now, but we are surrounded by many social, political, environmental things. And so many things is not for stable, but many, many factor, environmental factor, unpredictable. Not nature, but geopolitical and the social things. So where we are today. So we have to think future from then. So I will try to put three parts. One is toward openness and global collaborations, and explaining today's situation much more qualified as a turbulent period. And then what's next? Having said that, we saw the emergence of the concept of open science, mostly when we enter 21st century. My mentor at the Stanford University, Paul David, probably if he was still here, he could be winner of Nobel Prize of Economy this year, because it's closely linked to the history of economy, but mainly focusing on what happened, how it's happened, innovation. So Paul David's view was really based on the history of science, as I described, and the science by construction, by definition, it's open. So why talking about open science? Because science itself is open. So it was his view, 2003. And also we know that, as I mentioned already, astronomy, it's a practice. You can almost impossible to work as a single scientist just in your fields, but you have to share all the data. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to work on. So it's open science is a practice, not only astronomy, but there are many other fields. So for them, why talking open science? Because it's a practice. And also, I would say this trend moving toward open science has been backed by the developments of information management system, as I already described, and the data set you can handle so easily, and this computation power and all the system at every single university, they have their own data set and so, and you can easily share thanks to internet or everything. So this kind of infrastructure was helping us to take action, move toward open science. And also many organizations, and in particular global organization, has been advocating and supporting open science. And by the end, I would say it's became political challenges. Promoting open science is what's become a part of national and international science technology policy, STI in short. So, for example, in 2015, European Commissioner Carlos Moedas, he said, we have to move into the direction of open innovation, open science, and to the world. So it was quite fresh in 2015, but today it's normal. And in 2016, when G7 meeting has been hosted by Japan, and our church were organizing a scientific minister meeting in Tsukuba. So G7 meeting in Tsukuba, and we put on the agenda open science. And it's in view of SDGs preparing at the United Nations, and almost everything was in line, aligning to these ideas. So just my colleague, Hayashi-san, I know that Murakami-san is already familiar with this. Preparing this Tsukuba summit, we said how we can understand open science. And open science, it means many things. It's comply everything, many things. And at the beginning, we say historically, we have been discussing about open access because it was a very crucial problem. And then some additional concept like open innovation, science commons, and also open data issue coming in. And all these movements have been moving in articulation, complexity, and which include also citizen science, because it should be open, not only limited as expert professional, but collaboration and with the engagement of the citizen. So all the ingredient has been driven into the direction of open science. So our understanding of open science to be pragmatic, we can open access, open data, and citizen science, but not only. All this complexity, we may call it science ecosystem, like will be moving into open science. So that the item we call it in 2016, it was open science entering into a new era for science. You can have a look on the internet. So what could be the implication pushing into the direction of science? It's, I would say, in compacting ideas, open science implies, in our ordinary terms, I would say, opening the door to the global science community. Because in the history, I said, student scholars were together. And this spirit is still today critical, because science community, it's not community by, say, professionals. You have newcomers like students, and the next student, high school students or small children. I would say everyone can be a part of this science community. And also, open science, it means connecting people, because you are interested in science, you are talking about science, you want to understand what's happening around you. In terms of natural environment, it includes also social environment, everything. And then talking about sharing information and sharing ideas, and then you may take action together. So connecting people. And also it's a way of nurturing collaboration, not discussing together, but taking action together. And it could be scientific actions, but it could be also the way of promoting some new ideas for society. And also on the global scene, open science means not only collaboration in new narrow area, but it could be global collaboration. And how you be choosing your partner, what we say usually is key criteria, scientific excellence, not political consideration, economical, or just interested, but you are interested in doing something to discover constructing knowledge. So that means scientific excellence key. And also, additionally, pushing factors. We have many new funding mechanisms putting into place. European Commission, for example, pushed by a commissioner, many Horizon Europe and many things, and also nationally too, many new funding mechanisms supporting, facilitating global collaboration. And also, as a consequences, working together, doing science together. That means at the end, you have some publication together. So global co-authorship was increasing. At the same time, the value of the paper when you gather people globally, much more higher value. Not just because you have many names, because the quality is much better than if you are working alone. Till now, it's quite beautiful world. Okay, and just think about where you have been in 2010, 15 years ago. We saw the trend toward openness and global collaboration seems irreversible, go into that direction. But entering 2020, something changing. And looking back, 2020, beginning 2020, is to be probably historian, the future generation. They will say it was a kind of turning point. Because we saw kind of emergence of national concerns and many geopolitical challenges, not within the science ecosystem, but environment surrounding science ecosystem. And we still see emergence of many impact on science of all the geopolitical factors. And what we hear today, and more and more voices on the political side, we have to really focus on data sovereignty or technology sovereignty. Also, many nations declare so critical to have strategic autonomy. When you don't know what may happen in a geopolitical sphere, you have to be ready to function within your national border. And for that, you need to have autonomy yourself. Also, global collaboration, it means you are depending on your partners. So some say today, what we need is strategic independence. So in case something happens, you'll be able to function autonomously and independently. So it's in the opposite side of what we talk about, globalization, collaboration, and so on. And also, mostly some key point today, more and more, is economic first, and then national security issues came in. And the science community, science ecosystem are not isolated by all these concerns. So we have to deal with that today's situation. Some political publication, we have kind of, for example, European Union, we have to focus on key enabling technology for Europe's technological sovereignty. United States, they have critical and emerging technologies updated, so just identifying them. European Union, again, update of the EU control list of dual use items. So many things you have, if you're a scientist, if you are engineer, and you're working as students, we have to be aware of all these political discourse and align with this. So, as I say, advancing science is, by definition, it's a global public good. And also, we have to advance science to move toward SDGs. And also, not only SDGs, but for society itself. And by the end, I would say it has been in the initial speech, it is for humanity. So it's something that value is shared with this. But having said that, we have to accommodate or taking into account of many additional considerations today. What's our geopolitical dimension, as I mentioned? And also, nations are competing. Competition is healthy if you're playing in a safe way, in this, not just to be fast, but just neglecting others, but in a collaborative way. But some nations are really putting on the table priority into economic leadership. And also, more and more, it is pressing necessity for some area, region, national security. So all these considerations, even you are neutral as a scientist, you have to take into account all these considerations. So the key is said, we have to balance between centrality of scientific excellence, as I mentioned before, and security concern. So this is quite difficult to do, and we have to navigate within. So what's the implication of this stuff? Concretely, several nations are taking actions. For example, technology export controls having existed by the past. It has been strengthened. And as a scientist, you are applying to do your research grant application. And some additional conditionality, if you look back 20 years ago, what's the criteria to be accepted? Today, you have some kind of additional condition too. And also, as I said before, the trend was going global collaboration in 2010 till now. But now it's still pushing, the government are pushing global collaboration. But we need to be careful about with whom you'll be working on. So international partnership are much more scrutinized and checked by the policymakers. It's a reality. And more and more, DARPA type funding system, as I talk about dual use, is growing. So kind of priority, even these fund are funding fundamental research, but even though some implication on different fields. As a consequences, cross-border collaborations and exchange of people, it was free by the past, much more difficult today, and that's it. This is where we are today. So from the perspective of science community and institutions like universities, we are not just passively receiving all these new considerations. To be concrete, almost all research institutions, they have obligation to respond to the new requirements because probably are funded by public money and so on. And concretely, some institutions are reviewing the lists of international collaboration to align to the national policy. And some institutions are revisiting their partnership strategy. And sometimes you see a kind of overreaction or self-restrictions more than expected by your government. So this is quite natural because you want to protect your institution. You want to protect your researchers doing research. So it's quite natural, but it's the right way to move. That's the key questions. The question is open by default, still today, thankfully, but except for key emerging strategy or critical emerging strategy. So some kind of category preserved for that. And alliance and partnership is still promoted, encouraged, but like-minded countries, so restrictions. And what we don't know, it is not written on the regulation, something like that. But sometimes you feel that there are discretionary intervention. It depends on country, but it may happen. So these trends are pushing more and more on self-censorship. And because we have this kind of gray zone here. What is a critical emerging technology? How you define that? If you're navigating the fundamental research, is here or not? It's gray zone, enlarging. And the geopolitical environment is not so clear, transparent, and moving, evolving every day. So how to deal with that? And also it gives to the institution additional burden, administrative staff to be just there to carefully check all the papers. And sometimes you may have unpleasant surprise. That's where we are today. So my view is that today, more than ever, we have to have coordinated actions among all stakeholders of science ecosystem. And it's something not just imposed by the governments or regulation by the university system, but as an individual scientist and as a stakeholder science ecosystem, we have to be conscious about that. And if it's possible, make coordinate actions. Based on some principles, one, I would say recognizing that science is a global public good. We have to remember that every day. To have kind of mutual trust among us. And the main goal will be the title of my presentation, keeping knowledge creation and sharing as open and global as possible. So this is my message. Having said that, I would say not a propaganda, but just we need to make efforts, not only doing science in your lab, but for the community, I would like to see the voice of the science community much more expressed and heard. So this is my core message, and I'll be happy to discuss with you. If you have any questions, comments, I would like to have your views, because I was expressing my personal view, but I see I'm for the diversity of view. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And anyone who has questions or comments, please come up to the microphone right up here. Thank you.
Yep.
The light's gone on. That's a good thing. Okay, that's working.
Yes, that's
lambda shape thing is that. Thank you so much. And I think that was a fantastic, just in terms of framing the issues. And I think that that point about the change in 2020 and people's attitudes towards risk and security, it's a really, really good point. And I think there is a risk of research being regulated by people who look at everything from a security point of view, because they're trained to think about threats. And they're trained to think about, if you only let them get through once, then it's a disaster. And that is a fundamentally different mindset to going out and exploring and challenging and questioning. So I think that's a really helpful articulation of some of the issues. I think you were pointing to it at the end, but to what extent do you think it's actually the responsibility of the sector to come up with models of how do we deal with risk and how do we deal with threats in a way that actually works for us, rather than leaving it to the military people and the security people who may not have the same mindset and certainly don't have the same appreciation of the long-term benefits of allowing freedom in research? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. As I say, we are living in the ever-changing world. And for this, sometimes it's important to remind ourselves what we are doing. And because I know that young researchers today are much more busy compared to my generation. We had time, taking, discussion, so many pressure to continue to be a top level scientist. It's really huge pressure. From the scientific perspective, it's healthy, but many other pressures coming in, and you have to deal with that. But if you are reacting individually, you could be lost sometimes. That's why I'd say you need to have someone with whom sharing the concern, and it's possible to take action together. That's I'm advocating at my last two slides. You are not alone. And even you are competing in your field, because I want to be the top 10%, and he is mostly, or she is, but you are within the same science ecosystem. So it's your colleagues. And that's why I will advocate, encourage you to work together, and then, not only discussing about scientific issues, but what's surrounding you, to make sure that you have better environment tomorrow. And it probably, you may say it's time consuming, demanding, because I don't have time to do all this stuff. But by the end, it's bring to you additional value. And it's useful because, as I say, science is any more individual enterprise, because you're working in your team and globally, nationally, in your lab. That means you have to collaborate and taking action to preserve science. It's a way of kind of training for you to work together and with a value that we are promoting science at the meta level, in sense, not only in your fields, and that's gaining for you and for the global community. So serving science global community, it's kind of obligation for you to be a part of the member. It's my view. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Oscar from the Global Young Academy in Mexico. I would like to also, well, firstly, thank you for sharing your view of how you see things. I will also like to share my view. When you mentioned that science and everything's centered around scientific excellence, I have a view of that it shouldn't, in the sense that, for example, in the Global Young Academy, we evaluate for new members scientific excellence, but we also take into account social engagement, because we don't want scientists that are just in their lab, just working towards increasing their metrics. So if we just evaluate scientific excellence, we're just gonna be like ruled by the metrics that we have, and the ones we have right now are not very good, as we've heard the past couple of days. So I would like to see a future where science is also led by not just growth for the sake of growth, but also taking into account like having responsibility for what we are developing and why we're developing for. Thank you.
Thank you for your remark. In my slide, I put the priority scientific excellence. It's the baseline in some sense, but not saying that it's not only scientific excellence. I was supporting Young Global Academy because I thought, as I advocate just quite now, because it's a community of scientists who are not just seeking for your own scientific excellence, but acting as a community, not just for the science community, but society as a whole. That's why it's important to have this action and movement, and that's why I'm supporting you. More than more, I didn't have time to touch on implication of AI development on science. But much more, I would say, with emergence of AI and expansion of AI within the scientific field, and really, it's impacting the way to do science. It's also impacting society as a whole. Through scientific discovery and computer science advancing. And the critical thing is that something you are doing as researchers, discovering things, creating knowledge. By the past, it took a long time to have an impact, real impact on the society. Today, mostly some are immediately, because not just waiting for the application to be developed by the business sector and so on, or the innovation system, but just so many shortcut channel. And that's why you, as a scientist, generator of knowledge, you have to have not just doing your research, but thinking about what's the implication of your research. That's at the same time, as you say, you should feel more responsible of your action on society. It was not the case when I was a young student. Nobody talked about social responsibility, because you have to go ahead with your researches. Because it's so many years that your idea will be or not impact on society, much, much more. So again, I would say, you young researchers, you have much more pressures, and also you have to think about your science, but at the same time, social implication, and what could be it's not so easy because you are not so, you usually, some are now not training when you are a student to take this consideration. It's because your field was your field, but social consideration was for the social scientists, those who are studying humanity, and it's up to them to really propose that, and we can collaborate. And it's better to collaborate than nothing, but much better that you consider yourself being actor within. So I will encourage you to have broad, wider view on what you are doing, and exactly what you say, it's you have to feel more responsibility vis-a-vis society and vis-a-vis society and citizen. And so I completely agree with you, and I encourage you to pursue your perspective. I'm sharing with you. Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for the keynote. Mine is not a question, but a comment, and particularly your ending note where you talk about scientists' voice should be heard and expressed. My name is Ivy, and I'm with African Journals Online, AJOL. So we have an online platform where we amplify the voices of African researchers. And for us, it has been critical to create that platform because we have found, due to the global North-South divide, there has been a perception or a story that has been told that in Africa, there is no research output. I think Leslie Chan also presented on the global map where we are almost non-existent. So for us, it has been imperative that we showcase what we have on the continent. And at present, we have 905 journals, predominantly, well, almost 80% are open access, and we're working to flip those that are not. So just having that platform, I think Maggie as well shared in a presentation that for her, it's important that she be called in decision making and on the table where decisions are made. And I'll go further to say, in cases where you have been called to the table and your voice is not being heard, you can also create your own table, and through collaboration, amplify voices for the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for your keynote. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments and your view. I know that just saying that the voice of the science community should be expressed in the heart, already in place so many actions like you described. And also you as a young scientist, you are taking action yourself and collaborating with different parts of the world. And this is something very encouraging, and also the power of change making, power of resistance to new geopolitical pressure. Because at the national level, for example, you have to have your research grant, and as I say, you are aligning with a policy. But as I say, if you are alone, you are lost. That's why you need to collaborate, and not only in your own nation, but other countries, because many are in the same situation. So, for example, as you mentioned, Global Young Academy is one way. But also we have many regional level association of researchers. And I think having kind of mapping of all these movements will be very interesting and useful. And if you can have connection among all these constellation of powers, it's been much more powerful. And also, I would say United Nations is a place to be the place you can express your voice, but not only. So please go to the United Nations, but at the same time, explore other sphere. At the same time, probably you can work with your national governments, but not only from your perspective, but showing that you are backed by many other associations, and you are backed by other colleagues globally. It makes more power, and it makes your voice better understood. Because if I take the case of Japan, we are very, it's difficult to put on the table some proposal coming from the scientist itself. But if it's supported by global young academia or global some institution, it's easier to be on the agenda. So it's probably time consuming for you as a researcher, busy to do your research, but at the same time, serving the science community is kind of obligation for all of you. And why not take this action? And I'm sure taking this action is, it's a kind of learning process for you, because you may be later on bringing some new association orders, and it could be very good training for you to take action in this field. So that's my view. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for your keynote speech. I am May from the Philippines, but I work here at RIKEN, so I'm really very grateful to Japan for allowing me to pursue my scientific career. Now, I recognize that you possibly have a seat at the policy-making table, so I would like to share some observation. So recently, there is an issue of the communications of ACM where they try to understand if it's really effective to have open access publications. And as it turns out, it is good because people tend to publish more, and also because we have the grant funding institutions that are now requiring to have open access. The problem is similar to what you have mentioned a while ago. It's still important to make scientific quality center to it. As it turns out, those who publish in open access, they don't get as much citation. So those who publish in open access, they tend to cite popular non-open access sources, but those non-open access sources do not cite these newly open access publications. And a lot of it seems that people have the perception that the open access publications are not of good quality. And I'm not so sure how true is that. Part of me thinks it's because of perception. It's just because, as you may have heard during the past few days, a lot of African, Asian countries, they tend to publish in these lower open access journals. And the traditionally high quality research, they are not looking in those things. So if I may suggest, if it's possible, you might want to tell people to please consider looking at publications from non-traditional venues and show that as part of evidence of good scientific searching. And a lot of it, I think, is coming down to the idea of decolonization. I feel that early 2020s, it's a popular topic, but somehow because of the rapid change in political scenario, it's become erased nowadays. I feel that decolonization is not about erasing the help that the Western nations and the rich nations have given to us. It's just allowing other people to have a seat at the table. And it's about, promoting these alternative resources, allowing people to publish in their own languages and all those things. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really concrete level of discussion, and it's really important because, as I said, open access was really a starting point to move toward open science, because it was very everyday life for your researchers. Once I have my research result and my paper, it's brilliant idea for me, not only for me, but it should be published. So what to do is really a science ecosystem as it was as such that you have to publish to make your application to the publishers. And the publishers are a monopolistic situation around the world. And the big publishers are there. And top journal, cited journal, as usually at the hand of all the big publishers, even still now. But I would say just, I didn't have time to talk about AI, but now, not only from the open science perspective, but given that we have new tools, digital tools, and the computational power and the data set, and they have a way to put everything on the website from your site, including scientific discussions. So it's anymore the publication is preserved to big publishers. The critical question for them is a question of survival, how we can maintain our business, given that the way you put your results public, it's anymore through these traditional publications. Even though these publication has a value because of the evaluation system and how to check the quality of a paper, because you have this peer review system which guarantee that the paper is higher than this low quality. And now it's really a turning point in some sense, because they are seeking for new business model. And some are putting available for the public kind of AI tools to facilitate the publication or your research activities. And they are seeking for that because they know that it's anymore the continuation of their business model by the past and for the future. This is one point. And also the question is that even you may have science version of SNS, and you have formally preprint system that before this traditional way, as soon as you have something concrete and you think it's important, you can make your research results available to be checked by all around the world. So many channels are there. And through this, sometimes it will take time, but I guess we may have some kind of convergence on some new way of publishing, new way of making available your research results, as well as keeping the quality ensured for the scientifically. So it could be done by scientific community itself, self-regulations, or through the formal way of publishers. So we may have several channels in the market. So that's something that we have to foresee, but we don't know yet what could be the mainstream in the coming 5-10 years. That's why, but still, I would say the key components of all the story is that you as a researcher, you have to investigate, you have to invest in your research. And respecting all the scientific methods I described, it's for sure, and it's really continuing. The way you gather information, you publish will be different. But fundamentally, all these elements will not change, I imagine, I hope. And being responsible for your research, for your publication is a key. Not anymore because the publisher say it's a good paper, it's a good paper. Because you are working consciously, responsibly exercising your ability and the competencies as a researchers, you will do something good. And the way you will be sharing will be different. But anyway, the fundamental, I think, is there. And hope that young generation will be continuing to keep all this value, even though they can chat, in an informal way. So that's my view. So no direct answers, but we have to foresee everything, but stay good scientist.
And I think we have time for about 2 more questions.
Thank you, Dr. Harayama, for your speech and contextualizing the historical context of how some of these big issues arrived today. Yesterday morning, when Anna Persick summarized the state of play of the UNESCO recommendations, one of the observations she made is the role of non-state actors in the current development of open science. And your remarks about AI and publishing industry anticipate my question about the non-state actors, because all these big AI and all these analytics and so forth are controlled by non-state actors. And I find it interesting, institutions are scrutinizing the relationship with other states, but not the relationship with these non-state actors. I wonder how you would, in terms of policy recommendations, what we could do about this aspect of the relationship.
There are many things, and we are navigating in the new environments, which include new technological tools like AI and so on and so. And also we try to make kind of basic principles to better use all these new tools. And the UNESCO, for example, related AI, they're working on ethical AI to ensure that it is not against the human and so on and so. So I think we are structuring now within a new environment, new context, and we do not have any specific answer to all these challenges, but we have to navigate with. So that's my view. And I think it's important to see, to check what the positioning of different institutions, which include national level or policy, but international like UNESCO and other United Nations families and OECD. And at the same time, you have to position yourself to have this order view, but not just accepting as such, but having your perspective on that. And I say, you as young people, you have your voice. That means not just following what it is said, but just formulating your view. What should be the ideal scientific community in the coming years? It's up to you to construct and to defend all these values. So that's my perspective.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'm a student from Temple University, Japan, and we don't really cover much about open science. It's always been a topic that's been very fascinating, but it's always been very brushed off in the university itself, probably because of the fact that it is not a very big university. But aside from that, I would really like your opinion. Earlier, you mentioned that open science is something that basically is supposed to open doors for the global science community, and it's supposed to be a space for collaboration. And so I was wondering, since there are, I'm sure, many things that cause for the open science to not be recognized, or like obstacles that cause it to have more of a difficulty being accepted widely. do you think open science currently is recognized as like a global public good? And if not, would you say that the most pressing obstacle, like what would you say is the most pressing obstacle to achieving that recognition? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and the question. As I said, open science movements started in more than 10 years now, 15 years now. And at the beginning, it was all these way of thinking. And once it has been kind of became policy within the nation, for example, if I take the case of Japan, government push the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology to make open science reality. That means requested to universities to have open science policy within and take action within. So I would say it's coming up for, if you are president of your university, let's say, something coming from the ministries, who is funding lots of my projects. So I have to follow the directions. So I will say to my staff, we have to prepare open science policy for my university. And let's say we will implement some kind of regulation within and pushing researcher to go open access journal, for example. And it's become kind of checklist in some sense. And by doing in this way, you are far away from the initial thoughts, philosophy of open science. So it's nice to have open science policy expanded and recognized among different universities. At the same time, the negative side of this success is that it's become kind of to-do list. And that's the danger, because you are not thinking about this kind of, as I say, opening a door for the scientific community and connected people or nurturing collaboration. It should be a part of action with open science, but losing this part concrete mechanism to make change, to improve the science community. That's no. Sometimes you have to think about what we are doing because it is said to do. Why I'm doing that.
Thank you. And with that, we are unfortunately out of time. So thank you all, and thank you so much for your engaging presentation. So we will now have a short break. Please do be back in this room by 11:30 and we'll get started. We're also taking an informal poll, so if you're too hot or too cold, come see me. Thank you.